So we're finding the aerosols, the metal particulates, the weather engineering, whether it's scalar, ionic, or orgone, or the chi of the atmosphere. All of those can be used and leveraged to create weather events that are several standard deviations or outside what would be typically normal. Before jumping on the chemtrail bandwagon was I needed a motive. Without a motive, you can't say what they're doing and why they're doing it. You have to have a motive. So the agenda was drought. The agenda was to kill the storm, at least in that one particular spot. You can kill a storm in place. That's easy to do with HAARP. You just change the polarization, you change the ionization of the atmosphere, and the storm will fall apart. So it's very easy to add those particulates of aluminum, barium, and whatever else they want to put in there. And as you add heat to that, those particulates then radiate the heat into the atmosphere, and it warms. Let's just say the storms can develop more violently, more quickly, in places that are not necessarily as where you would expect them to be. And we've got technologies available to us now that can do, continent-sized projects. If you control the weather, you're going to control the planet. It's that simple. The work we're doing will provide cover for others to come out. And I'm most interested in whistleblowers.
Hi. The subject of chemtrails keeps coming up, or at least it came up while I was beginning my research on weather modification. I wasn't even a believer that they actually existed, that there was a trail separate from the regular condensation.
Under assault right now. It's not alarmism, it's not exaggeration. This type of weather modification puts out chemicals and toxins, some known, some not known. Many people who try to debate this issue, if they ask you why they should believe this is going on, we have film of it happening, end of the argument. That's it. There's no debate, no discussion, this is not speculation. Also indicative of different materials being expelled from different portions of the aircraft. So again, this amounts to weather warfare, period. The U.S. has historically engaged in weather warfare around the globe. This is historical fact. We have data going back to Vietnam, 1968, Project Popeye. 1976, UN passed resolutions forbidding weather modification in wartime. So again, this is not speculation. We live in a society that's been trained to shut down when they hear the word conspiracy theory. They've been conditioned pretty well. But the bottom line is this is the issue that can't be ignored any longer. People can ignore Kennedy, people can ignore false flag events like Vietnam and even whatever happened on 9/11, but this issue can't be ignored. When in the North State, for example, we took variants of different planes, the different configurations of spray apparatus. This is an ongoing experiment. There's likely many different configurations. We see aircraft trails that have different color composition. So this is an ongoing experiment of which we are all a part, like it or not. More configurations. Obviously, there's a whole lot of planes with a whole lot of tanks doing a whole lot of something. So this kind of footage should not be ignored. Clearly, these are what would appear to be passenger planes, most of them with windows. So there appear to be many different types of aircrafts involved in the spraying activities. This is what we have. Again, global geoengineering, the ever-changing experiment, and we are, again, part of that experiment. Russian scholar warns of secret U.S. climate change weapon. We have Russia engaged in this as well. We also have China. And this is one of the reasons why it's so hard to get any sort of mainstream coverage, because the big players are all involved up to their eyeballs. So that's one of the reasons the media coverage is so sparse, but it's coming. What do weather weapons do? They wreak havoc in countries without anybody knowing they're even under assault. In the case of floods, droughts, all of this is a form of weather weaponry and weather warfare. And there is no arguing that we are all a part of weather warfare when our climate is being impacted the way it is right now. Again, countries around
have the capability of actually smelling and tasting these things in the air. In fact, that's when I first woke up to this, is I started tasting very salty metallic taste in the air and had terrible inflammation, pain, headache, all kinds of symptoms that came over me within a period of about 10 or 15 minutes, which I'd never experienced anything like this before. And the taste and the symptoms all coincided. And I looked outside and saw these big plumes across the sky that had been there for about an hour. And that's what woke me up to this. And I will tell you that the scents and the tastes that we experience, those of us who are sensitive that way, there are many. Around between 7 or 10 at night, and the time varies, they'll throw something down, or something reaches ground level, I should say, around that time, that causes terrible inflammation and tastes like a pharmaceutical drug mixed with some kind of really bitter herb taste. I don't know what this stuff is, but it causes me to have dramatic inflammation. And I've seen other people have symptoms where they get nauseous, they get headaches, they get joint muscle pain. Some of those symptoms I have as well.
Arnold Barnes, Jr., who is the senior scientist out of Phillips Laboratory. Now, again, this was delivered in 1997, and it's important to understand that since 1997, and the fact that this technology is well over 20 years old, this weather modification and control is accomplished by ground-level, horizontal hidden antennas and/or large space platforms that are nuclear-powered. So we have an advanced weapons system in place now. But this is back in 1997, and this is horrific. And I'll just read a couple of things in this document. They talk about the treaty issues on page 3. And they say the UN Convention on the Prohibition of Military or any other hostile use of environmental modification, which went into effect October 5th of 1978, applies only to widespread, long-lasting, or severe environmental modifications. In other words, there was a UN treaty back in 78 that prohibited